my name is Andre and welcome to 10,000 Pictures. Last week we learned about the Fibonacci Spiral and the rule of thirds. Today I'm going to list 10 other compositional elements that will improve your photography. Our brain connects well with symmetry and patterns. Consider this when finding symmetrical shapes on your scenes. You can find symmetry in almost anything. Architectural structures are good examples. Try breaking the rule of thirds and position elements in the middle of the frame. That way, both sides of your image will show similar elements, accentuating the symmetry across the shot. Take advantage of reflection on lakes and mirrors. Practicing with them is a great way to implement symmetry as a compositional guideline. In comparison to symmetry, our brains are also attracted to patterns. They give us a sense of harmony and order. We can either reproduce those patterns for pleasing composition, or we can introduce tension to the image and inflict shock by breaking away from patterns unexpectedly. Introducing a pattern and then breaking it is a great way to feel viewers' reactions. It's very common to see this technique in street and architectural photography. We shouldn't distract the viewer with unimportant elements. Instead, fill your frame with the subject to maximize its importance. A fill frame gives the impression of proximity. All of your subject's details and flaws are visible. It's ideal when the intention is to showcase your subject. Filling the frame is very common with portraits and architectural photography. When it's either impossible to fill the entire frame or feels a little too extreme, try to isolate your subject using a shallow depth of field. You can do this by widening your aperture and blurring the background. Keep in mind that your focus element is the main attraction of the image. This technique is particularly useful when shooting portraits or focusing on details. Rule of space refers to the subject's direction in the frame. Your main element should always be facing the inside of the frame. This means that it will be more spacious in front of the subject rather than behind. This happens because we have the tendency to direct our eyes towards the place the subject is heading to or facing. If your focus element is either moving or facing outside of the frame, our eyes will follow and focus towards the outside of the photograph. We can use this skill to lead viewers' eyes towards secondary elements on the frame. Combine this technique with the left to right rule, a concept suggesting that we look at images the same way that we read, from left to right. This can help us build an even more powerful composition. Keep in mind that some cultures do not read from left to right, so be sure to compose your image with the viewer's cultural background in mind. This technique is very common in street photography and photojournalism, as well as whenever we work with moving elements. When we use the rule of thirds, we position our main element in one side of the frame. Consequently, we tend to overlook the other side. This can disrupt the balance of the picture. Unbalanced pictures are not as appealing because humans will naturally seek equilibrium. To correct this, insert the secondary element on the weaker side of a frame. This will again balance the composition. Balanced compositions are common in every photographic style. The rule of odds suggests that a picture is more appealing if there is an odd number of elements in the frame. This is because odd numbers have a middle. When we use even numbers, the eye tends to rest in the empty space where the middle should be. If we compose images with an odd number of elements, they become more appealing to the eye. This rule is common in street photography and photojournalism. When composing a portrait, pay attention to the borders of your picture. Framing and cutting one of the subject's limbs will not appeal to the eye. If you have to leave an arm or a leg out of the frame, try to do it on top or below the articulations. Never crop it over the elbow, knee or wrist. Cropping the joints will give the impression that your subject doesn't have the rest of the limb. When you crop it in the middle of the forearm, for example, the impression is minimized as your brain's attempt to fill in the gap. Check your favorite fashion magazines. You won't find any amputated joints. Guaranteed. This is one of my favorite compositional rules. It occurs when you use elements to frame your subject by means of isolating from distractions. Adopting a frame will also create depth for a more three-dimensional look, well as context for a better understanding of the picture's message. The frame doesn't have to be man-made. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even have to be physical. For example, you can frame your subject in darkness. It's a great way to use the surroundings and get creative with composition. This rule is very popular in street, landscape, and portrait photography. Leading lines will help carry the viewer's eye around the frame and focus one's attention to the main element. Look at your surroundings and try to find patterns that lead to your main element. The most common example is the road that leads to your subject. The eye will follow that road and reach the destination. The same happens with walls and patterns. The line doesn't have to be straight either. Curved lines work very well, especially when they travel around the whole frame. This rule is a favorite among those practicing landscape and street photography. These are just some examples of compositional rules. There are many more. Though they're supposed rules, we should treat them as points of advice. Depending on the situation, we can bend or break them. Composition to me is the most important part of photography. Nowadays the technical aspect is pretty automatic, and composition is a very subjective exercise. It is the photographer's choice as to what should and what shouldn't be visible in the frame. Your choices will showcase your cultural understanding of the world to the public. So take advantage of it. Use it to tell your stories and to show your thinking in regards to different subjects. This is when we start to actually communicate through images. The best way to practice composition is to study other pictures and search for the photographer's personal compositional choices. With that information in mind, you'll start recognizing the patterns around you and consider how to use them when you're taking your own pictures. That's it for this week, and I hope you guys enjoyed the list. And if you know of any more compositional rules, I encourage you that you please comment on this post. Other photographers will appreciate your suggestion as well. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on 10,000 Pictures.